Like a specific moment that you can remember growing up that kind of was like, oh, I want to be a coach maybe, or just be a leader in general?
Um, my high school career, I transferred high schools when I was a junior. And my freshman, sophomore year, I didn't get the opportunity, and I didn't have a great relationship with my coach. And the opportunity that I got my junior, senior year allowed me to step into a little bit more of a leadership position as a player. That coach kind of believed in me a lot more than my previous coach. And I feel like from that point on, I definitely stepped into a leadership role leading into college. I met a lot of really cool people, had a great coach there. And then during COVID, I had transferred to St. Joseph's College, and I had played there for a little bit, but then COVID shut everything down, and it kind of just naturally tunneled me into coaching. So I stepped away from basketball, and naturally I felt like what I should do is just step into coaching. I had been training myself, my teammates, and some other people prior to that. Got into strength and conditioning, and then specifically basketball coaching and performance, and then the skill development like Dalton talked about a little bit earlier. So it just felt like a natural transition for me. But specifically, if I want to like pinpoint a point in my career, in my life so far, is probably whenever I transferred high schools. Having that coaching change specifically helped me a lot because somebody believed in me and viewed me as a leader for the first time as a player. And that definitely carried a lot of weight for me as a player, as a person, as a coach now.
Cool.
All right, what would you say your leadership style like is, and what would you consider your like strengths and areas you would like to improve as a leader?
I would say I'm not 100% brushed up on the lingo or the terminology, but it's more of a transformative leadership style. I think there's a lot of people that like to lead and coach the players, but I think that a more productive way is to coach and lead people, because we're not just coaching and leading a sport, we're actually coaching and leading people as well. So I like to approach basically just the human aspect of things and then kind of reverse engineer, if you want to say, the people and then the actual sport. So if we can help develop you guys as coaches, as people first, and help you guys become confident individuals, then I think everything else will take care of itself. And if you guys are able to be confident as people first, I think the skill aspect, the tactical aspect, the technical aspect, all those kind of things will kind of carry over from the human aspect. But I like to focus on the holistic approach and the human more than anything.
And to follow up on that, do you think there are any like other leaders that you've like taken that style from? Is it something you sort of developed on your own, or like where have you found that idea?
I take pride in my education as a leader, as a coach. So I definitely try to consume as much literature and create a lot of connections. Early in my career, I went to a couple different conferences and connected with some really cool people that are pretty innovative in the space, and they have a pretty cool approach. Like a holistic approach, a human style approach. So definitely the influences that I've had early in my career helped me a lot. My previous coaches, like I said, whenever I transferred, I think that my high school coach was a big influence on me. My first college coach, Matt Richards, was a big influence on me. This year, Ed Silva, you guys' head coach, our head coach, definitely a big influence on me. And yeah, I think it's a lot of the stuff that I consume and I take in myself and I try to apply every single day. My parents have been a big influence on me. Yeah, I would say those are probably the biggest things.
So you talk a little bit about like opportunity and just having that transformative leadership style. How do you feel like you've been able to maximize the opportunity you've been given here, and like what do you feel you can bring to kind of transform our culture here or going forward?
It's a good question. I think Coach Silva does a great job already talking to you guys as people, and I think that it's helpful to have more people on staff in general. Prior it was Ben and Joe, so it's two people on staff. Now we have a third person, so that's obviously important because those two are busy. Everybody is busy, so I think just having more volume in the coaching staff helps a lot. But me specifically, I think, like I mentioned, my experiences, some of the people that I've connected with, my expertise, my education, I think it's all things that can help separate a program. And I think specifically, again, the human aspect, I think I'm a little bit younger. Obviously, Ben is, our student assistant is, your actual colleague and a student with you guys. But I also think as like an assistant coach with a little bit more experience, being a little bit closer in your guys' age, little bit more relatability. Not that you guys can't relate and talk to your head coach, but sometimes an age gap just creates like a little bit of, not diversity, but a little bit of degree of separation there. So I think just the human aspect and being able to connect with somebody a little bit closer in you guys' age helps. And then, like I said, I think that I certainly pride myself on the education and the expertise that I bring to the program, whether it's the strength and conditioning, the performance stuff, skill development, whether it's pregame stuff, before practice, after practice. I think from a technical and tactical standpoint, I bring a lot to the table in there. But then even just having conversations, I think that the conversations that I've had with every single one of you guys on the team has been valuable in some way or another. And I think that goes a long way. So.
Definitely value all the conversations we have had. And so we're talking about you coming to UNE. How do you feel like at your old school SMCC, you played there, you already had a pretty good connection with the coach, I'm assuming, and the people there. You came to a new environment this year with new people you didn't know as well. Like, what was there, some adjustments you had to make to like, for your leadership style to make that connection so you could do have your holistic approach? Yeah,
no, it was definitely an adjustment. I didn't know not anybody here. Thankfully, I knew Jack Pazinski, Adam Lux. I knew Connor decently well, and then I had an okay connection with Coach Silva. But like you said, I mean, I played at SMCC under the coach that I coach with. I knew a lot of the players there. So naturally, it's kind of a scary jump to go somewhere that you don't know as many people. But the approach is simple. I mean, you just try to be a human at the end of the day and be somebody that's approachable and just start having conversations. I view myself as obviously a professional guy, but I'm also pretty easygoing, goofy. Like, if I can make you guys laugh, if we can share an experience together, like, we start to make connections. So if I can make a connection day one and just start stacking good days with every single person, that's all that matters. There's some stuff that I do that's like not weird, but just not necessarily traditional stuff. Like, a lot of our warm-ups aren't necessarily traditional. So, some people might not be used to the stuff that we're doing, but I just ask that you guys come into it with an open mind, and I already present you guys the information. And I try to educate you guys as well as far as like why we're doing it, what we're doing, and just take advantage of different opportunities to where, if somebody wants to confide in me as a coach, or if somebody wants to talk to me, connect to me, just provide different opportunities for that and just take advantage of those opportunities. So the transition was fun. It was a little intimidating at first, but at the end of the day, it's just people, and we just got to connect.
So just to talk back a little bit back at your time at SMCC, it consisted of a lot of winning. So like, what do you feel was a common theme amongst the team and amongst leaders of the team that kind of created that winning environment and that you can carry over just into your next, like, here and just going forward in life?
Yeah, I will say everything is contextual. So obviously the conference and everything about SMCC is a small college conference. It's a small college, so it's going to be different than Division III, obviously. The players are different, competition is different, but it's all contextual. So, SMCC is not like they're the powerhouse or whatever within that conference, and they have been for a long time. So it's not necessarily like if we were to throw them into this conference, like, it'd be a much different story. But as far as contextual to that conference, I think the standard and the culture that's been built there via Coach Richards, Matt Richards, he's been there for like 26 years, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he's at a point in his career where, the standard is pretty high. Yeah. So there's not really there's not really patience for anybody that wants to come into the program and kind of do their own thing. So everybody has to be together, has to be one unit. The leaders, what I love about that program specifically, I wasn't a captain in the program, but the captains that are named captains in the program, like, the entire situation, the entire experience is expedited because you only have 2 years. Right. So 4-year guys, right? If you're named a captain your third year, like, you've had 2 years to kind of acclimate to the conference, to the program, to everything. So guys are kind of expedited and pushed further into that journey as a leader, mm-hmm. being named captain potentially their first year or second year. So it's a tough position to be in as a player, but I think that with the coaching staff, especially with Coach Richards and AJ Burton, who's been there for now 10 years, they do a great job preparing them. And I think that they're just continue to bleed into what, the coaches have as standards and set there, the principles there and the culture. I mean, when you walk in, like you said, there's a lot of winning that goes on. So if you're a recruit coming in, we kind of know the standards up here. So whenever you know the standards up there, it makes it easier to, like, everybody just comes in to hold everybody to that standard. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the culture, the standard, I would definitely speak highly about that, and specifically how Coach Richards and AJ have been able to build that culture.
Your dad played professionally. Would you say you were born with leadership qualities, or were you taught to be a leader throughout your playing career?
I wouldn't say born with leadership qualities. Definitely think that having a dad who grew up in the game and coached me growing up was huge. But I treat leadership just like any other skill. Some guys are born being better at it. Some guys aren't as good at it, and it just takes repetition. And just like any skill, whether you're running or skating or shooting, anything like that, some guys are born faster. Some guys are born stronger. Some guys work to get to that level. And I think leadership is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, speaking of your dad, was he your biggest role model growing up, or would you say someone else was, and why?
100%. Like, my dad was my coach growing up. He was a guy who played high-level hockey. He was very respected in his field of being a really good leader. I don't think I really put a ton of emphasis or thought about myself as a leader until I got older, until I was thrown into more of those leadership positions. But my dad definitely being the biggest role model. The reason why I play hockey, the reason why I'm still working in hockey today is just due to the passion that he instilled in me as a kid.
Yeah. So speaking of your playing career, you played at Trine University in Indiana, not too far from Michigan where you grew up. Is that the first time you really felt like you were put into that leadership role like you just said?
I would say junior hockey was probably my first time. I don't think growing up, you don't think about leadership too much unless you are one of those guys who are kind of seen as like a natural born leader. But I was lucky enough to have a fantastic coach my last year junior when I was in Utah, and he really wanted to develop me as a leader because he thought that would unlock me as a player to be better and to take more responsibility in that role. And we had a younger team at the time. I was an age-out player, 20 years old, and we had some 16, 17-year-old kids who were trying to just get their feet wet in junior hockey, and he thought me coming from the North American League, taking a step down, going to what was then the Western States Hockey League, that I could come in, not only provide being a good player, but mentoring these young kids who were going to take over my spot. So that was really the first time where I was really held accountable at a higher level than other players. That was the first time I really felt that. And it was by design by my coach who saw more in me and wanted to, begin that process of really thinking about all of everything I do from a day-to-day basis, at my actions, and how much of a microscope I was under compared to, some of the other guys who were playing a lesser role on the team. So that was, getting to Trine definitely was, I took that with me when I got to Trine. I think that's why I had the success I did have, but I think it really started in junior hockey was the first experience with that.
Yeah. How was being a leader, like as a player, really at Trine, really guided you into taking that next step of becoming a coach?
I think you just understand the microscope that you're under, like I said, and how when you're looked upon as a leader, everything you do is you're influencing the other people around you. And I think now even more as a coach, it's even a bigger step that you have to take care of all these guys look up to you. It's like when you're a leader, there's going to be guys who, kind of go their own way, and maybe, you don't earn that quite respect of a leader from everybody, but as a coach, you have to have everybody bought in. So I think it's even more so when you take that step to a coach, you have to even be more detailed and more I think consistency is the biggest thing. Is you can't have inconsistencies from guy to guy because it will be exposed very quickly.
Yeah, you talk about guys going their own ways. Like, how do those guys kind of become more of a leader? Like, what advice would you give to them?
I think just selflessness is huge. Understanding that it's about the whole group and getting the best out of everybody, and being a leader, you have to be selfless. You have to have, your goals have to be not only for yourself, but you have to make the other people around you better. So I think the biggest thing is understanding that you're not going to always get your cookies. You're always not going to get rewarded and the gratification that you might feel like you deserve. But the best leaders are the ones who don't get caught up in that and have just, as long as they feel like they're getting the best out of the people around them and making everybody around them better, it usually translates to them being held at a higher pedestal of being an elite leader.
Yeah, nice. So once you graduated, you went right into coaching at Colgate University, a Division I program. How was that transition like from being a Division III player, stepping right with the big dogs?
Definitely a little bit of imposter syndrome at the start. I won't lie. If anybody feels like they belong right away, it's not. You're only, I think, lying to yourself. But I truly believe that was a huge experience for me to just soak in everything and be just a piece of the puzzle and not, take a lesser role and we were lucky enough to win when I was there too. So being able to be at that level with those type of athletes, with those type of things, it's a lot of the same stuff we preach now, but it's just that degree of error is so much smaller, and they understand that, man, it's going to take our best plus some plus extra to just even have a chance to compete compared to, at our level, a lot of times we can just show up and be good because that's how we are, but when you're at that level, the degree of separation is even tighter, and you don't realize that until you have that perspective of being with them in the fight, being there every day, and just seeing being able to work with guys who are NHL draft picks, for example, and seeing what their habits are every single day, and knowing that there's guys that I've been with who are less talented and have a bigger ego. These guys have twice as much talent, and they have half the ego as some of these guys, and that's what you see when you're like, wow, that looks like a player or a kid or someone who has the chance to take that next step to go. Now you're talking professional hockey, and the degree of separation gets even tighter, so that was huge.
Yeah, after a year you left and started coaching here at UNE as our assistant coach. What was that transition like moving out here to the Northeast and everything that came with it?
Yeah, it was good. I was able to get my feet wet in that coaching experience kind of at a lesser role. I was more just focused on the video side of things and more like just what it's like to run a program at that level. So I think coming here, I took a bigger role and responsibility. Recruiting is probably the number one thing what's different between my role there and what my role here is being in charge of those next group of kids coming up and having that responsibility of, hey, if you don't do your job recruiting and you don't bring in the right people, like it can take one bad apple to sour the whole bunch. And I've seen it. It's been true, and it's something that is very, very important at our level, and it's been a huge responsibility for me. So I think that's probably been the biggest change from going to Colgate to UNE for sure.
Yeah, we had a crazy experience, or you had a crazy experience this year as our head coach was sick, and you had to take over. What was how did that make you feel? What was that like? And
I felt confident. I'm very comfortable with you guys now, being here 2 years and really knowing you guys. Could I say I would have been that comfortable last year? Probably not. Just like I said earlier, a lot of these things, it comes with repetition, it comes with experience, it comes with trial and error and failing sometimes. And I felt like in that position, I felt very comfortable because of just the preparation that we put in all year, and I felt like it was just keeping the ship straight and making sure we don't crash more so than having to start the whole ship going. So I was really comfortable in that situation, and I think a lot of it just had a lot of credit to you guys and feeling that you guys were prepared and I didn't have to do very much, and I think that it was a fun experience.
Yeah, from like you said, experience is everything, but from year 1 to year 2, is that kind of the only thing that for you personally, is that because I feel like you took a much bigger step from year 1 to 2, is that kind of the major key that you contribute to? Or
yeah, I think it's just like anything. It comes with time, it comes with reps and comfortability. I think you can't fake confidence. I think you know what you feel like when you're playing and you don't have confidence, and you feel like when you're playing when you have a ton of confidence, and it's almost two different people at times. And I think the one thing that I really felt this year was just more comfortable with all of you guys, because I just got to know you guys at a human level too. And I think that once you just know the guy and we build that trust from just a lot of work we put together, and and it just comes with time and anything of development. You just have to put in work, put in time, and hope for the best.
Yeah, lastly, how do you continue to grow yourself as a leader?
That's good. Good question. I think the biggest thing is just holding myself accountable and holding myself to a higher standard as far as, I think a lot of cliche things, reflecting over the time that you had, the decisions that you make, and really making sure that looking back at it, was this a good decision? Was this a bad decision? Would I go about this a different way? Just things like that. I think the more consistent you are, the better you are in every aspect of what you do in life, whether it is you're an athlete, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, whatever role you play in your life, the more consistent you are, the more trust you're going to get from other people around you. That's kind of what I really think about when I'm coaching you guys, when I'm going from a day-to-day basis of, am I giving my best every single day? And if I do that more, it's hard in anything to be at your very best every day, but you can try to be. And if you come close to that and hold yourself to that standard, I think that's the best way to grow from here.
Yeah, well, this was fun. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
And hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you, Drew.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stevens, and I'm a student athlete here at the University of New England, and today I'm going to be interviewing my head coach, Charlie Birch, from the Uni men's lacrosse team. And today on this podcast, we're going to be diving into the aspects he's learned of leadership through teaching and coaching through his life. So yeah, to get into it. So Coach, let's just start off with kind of what you've learned through being a student athlete back in your days at Colby.
Probably go back a little before that. I knew that I had wanted to get into teaching and coaching, so I chose Colby as a place where I thought I could play, but also where I could get an education degree and prepare myself to be a teacher and a coach.
Thank you. And so yeah, what gave you that idea of wanting to be in coaching and teaching?
Probably my family background. My dad was a longtime teacher and coach in New Hampshire, and I kind of liked the lifestyle. I kind of liked the calendar of that, the way the year broke down, how much the school vacation time played into family time. And my dad was very successful, well respected around the town we grew up in and then the state because of his success. So I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps, I guess.
Thank you. And what kind of position did you want to feel and be inside of for sports wise? Like, how did you know you wanted to be a head coach?
Initially, I concentrated more on football. I had a goal to be a head football coach, which I did experience later on. But then as I got into playing lacrosse and pursued that sport as well, that became the sport that I really wanted to become a head coach in.
Thank you. And what's the best type of way you've found to inspire your team and kind of lead them through losses and victories?
Knowing that you are going to experience both, to prepare for sometimes insurmountable odds going into a game, and what the outcome was probably not going to be very successful, to have guys learn from that. Everything's a learning experience, as well as enjoy the successes of wins when you have a good group of guys to coach and enjoy that. So,
thank you. And going through so many players in your career and just kind of seeing them all go through you as a coach, what type of traits and qualities did you see made up a good player?
Someone who was willing to put the extra time in on their own to prepare themselves to be a really good athlete at whatever sport it was that they played, and then guys that practiced their craft all the time, took great pride in it, and wanted to always make themselves better.
Thank you. Are there specific people or coaches that you kind of base your style on, or certain leaders you look up to, whether it was coaching or teaching?
Well, going back, a lot of it, I felt I got a lot of that from my dad, but I had the experience. My first college coaching experience was at Bates in 1979. I worked with a guy named Webb Harrison. Webb Harrison was a longtime football coach there, did not have much of a lacrosse background. I volunteered to be his assistant coach as Bates transitioned from a club program to a varsity program. Webb gave me a good amount of responsibility, let me coach his defense and run some practices. Webb was a former Marine captain who had served 2 tours in Vietnam. He'd been through a lot in his life, so I think I learned things just in general from him about leadership and took a lot from him as well.
Yeah. Going back to your high school coaching days, as some of your teammates players may know, you had a very successful high school coaching career. With many state championships, including 8 straight, how did you keep your team level and every year going into it as a new season and not getting too cocky or anything like that?
Oh, I worked them very hard in the preseason. Tried to make sure we kept a level head about each new successive year that was coming along, and trying to repeat the successes of the previous team or previous teams. Conditioning was a big part of it. Basic fundamentals, stick skills was another big part of it. We worked on those an awful lot to prepare and get them ready for each successive year. And of course, there was a lot of pride in those guys to do what the teams that had come before them, and wanted to repeat that if they could.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment. Also, 2009, you won the U.S. Maine Lacrosse Man of the Year. Kind of what went into that? How did that go about? What kind of led up to that? Talk to me about that.
Well, it's like anything else. If you do something for a long time, you're eventually going to have either some successes or be recognized just for longevity. I took a leadership role, or was asked to take a leadership role in U.S. lacrosse at the high school level at that time period leading up to that. So I think I got recognized for that, and this was a time period when club lacrosse and high school lacrosse were kind of at a clashing with each other. The value of high school programs was still very important to a lot of people. The club program, which was relatively new at that time, was a way for, as young players and families said, well, this is a better path for me to potentially get recognized and get a college scholarship potentially. So trying to blend and mesh those 2 groups, the clubs and the high schools in the country, to work together and not be at odds with each other was important.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids go through that. Going back to coaching, what would you consider your favorite part about coaching?
I think, well, obviously game day is the most fun part most of the time. But I think that just the general preparation, watching the growth of the players, trying to help them improve their individual skills, their overall lacrosse IQ or IQ within their sport they play, and to prepare for that, and hopefully some of those lessons of hard work and what the rewards are going to be from that will carry over later on for them in their lives.
Yeah. Thinking about and comparing and contrasting your high school coaching to your college coaching, has anything changed? Did it seem a little different now that you have to recruit rather than just kids coming to you from middle school to high school?
The recruiting is very important. To be successful, you've got to go out and try and find the best players you can, but also looking for players that are going to fit well into your program, into the school or university you're working at that time. You're looking for guys that are going to be, realize that they're to play a sport secondarily to getting a great education in a 4-year period, and then moving on.
Yeah, thank you. Thinking back, what would be your greatest coaching memory?
Tough to sort them all out. I think, being able to have coached a guy like Dan Ozier back in 2017 and having him become the first ever All-American here at the university, but also, and now looking back what he's done in his life, is now he's an orthopedic surgeon out in Columbus, Ohio. So his work ethic that he had as a player and as a student carried over, and now he's a very successful young doctor in the country. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would you say is the biggest risk you've taken as a coach?
Trying to figure out sometimes as to whether player A and player B deserves that key role. I can't really think of any real risks I've taken other than possibly maybe trying to take this, move into the college level
Yeah.
from the high school level was a big jump for me, and something at the time that I didn't really think I'd ever, as I got older, that would ever have that opportunity. So that I think it was a risk when I got asked by the previous head coach here to come be his assistant, and then he left, and I moved up to his role. So
Yeah, and finally, if you could go back, is there anything you would change, or you think you've kind of lived to the fullest up to this point?
I think everybody can think back to the things they might change in their lives and how they might have done things a little bit differently. You certainly learn from that after an event or an experience. You say, was that a mistake? Was that a positive thing? But I don't think I would change a lot.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Coach.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cut.
Field hockey coach at Uni. She's been a part of the Uni system for over 10 seasons and has a win-loss average of 143 to 77. She has many feats of her own on field hockey side. Her percentage in 2023 for winning was .65, which was 21st in the nation of Division III coaching, Division III, as well as she was an assistant coach at Brown University and was a field hockey player herself at D1 College, University of Vermont, as well as she has many other feats of field hockey under her belt. To start off our conversation today, I was hoping you could just talk to us about what you see as leadership and how you see yourself as a leader.
Yeah, first, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate that. What I look for in a leader, across the board is, something that I always want to put out is just being more authentic and, someone that's going to be able to 100% believe in themselves and show up every single day, not really questioning kind of what they're doing. They're just confident in what, they're going to come and put in every single day. Leaders in general, I think, are a different breed. They're not set for every single person. We've had multiple of leaders on our team that it's just a wide range, and I think that you have to kind of fit within a mold to be able to have that style, and it's not easy. It's not easy to be a leader. It takes a lot to have. It's not pressure, but you take on a lot of roles, and that can be kind of daunting, especially when you're kind of an extension of the coaching staff. So. I want leaders to be able to be empathetic. I want them to be able to have conversations. I want them to be able to be comfortable in those tough situations. Because there are going to be times when you're going to have to be telling the truth, and the truth hurts to tell sometimes, and it also hurts to hear. So, you need to be able to have those kind of leaders that are just comfortable overall. And I kind of portray that as a leader as well is, you got to be vulnerable in situations. You got to be able to let people see the real kind of person of who you are on the highs and the lows, So being able to show that characteristic, I think, is a huge thing that we need, and that's something that we kind of accompany on our team.
Mm-hmm. When that kind of leads into another question I have is when you're going about picking team members as well as captains for your team or assistant coaches, I'm assuming you look for those similar qualities, but is there anything else that you look for when they're interacting with everybody?
Yeah, for assistant coaches, I always try to find someone that actually can balance me out. I tend to be kind of harder on the kids a little bit more, so I like to find someone that can be, that other person that balance me out. So there's always, both sides. For our captains, a lot of the times we put it out to the team to be able to have, because I want to get their voice as well. That's a big thing on our team is being able to have each player feels comfortable of being able to voice their opinions. So with that kind of allows us to see who they feel are comfortable in those tough situations, and then ultimately in the end, we as coaches decide, who are going to be our leaders on our team. But definitely those leaders, I think, like I said, they have to be an extension of our coaching staff. So being able to have the open communication, being able to come in and have those conversations when no one else wants to have them, I think is the biggest thing for our players.
When you were deciding to become, obviously you did field hockey for a majority of your life, when did you pivot to become a coach and become a leader in that sense?
So to be honest, I didn't want to be a field hockey coach to start. It was actually my least favorite sport. And then the more that I started playing it at the highest level was something that I really enjoyed, and being able to see like what we can do. And field hockey is a very unique sport. Most people come to the games and have no idea, what's really happening. The whistle's blowing all the time. But, what led me to this was it was something that I was able to take a sport that not many people know and be able to grow that within my community, and being able to do that with my town. Where I grew up, field hockey was a very big sport, and we won many championships, so that kind of garnered into being able to continue at the next level, and then being able to really kind of jump from player to coach. I've always wanted to be a teacher and coach, and every time I would go home from school, I would be the one that is, I didn't have the job at a restaurant. I was always coaching. So that kind of just led into just the real transition of being able to go from player to coaching position.
That's very interesting, and obviously in most sports paths, it's not a linear thing. It kind of just happens as you go. Was there a person that motivated you as you're growing up, or is there a leader that you look towards for just a general inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the coaches I've had have kind of paved the way for me, whether good or bad. You kind of learn for every single person that you have either been coached by, or the one that you have coached with. So I have had some amazing coaches that have taught me, you do this to help, lead one way. I've had coaches that I'm like, that's not the way that it should go about, so, and that's part of it, that's part of the life of being able to learn from every single coach that you have either been taught by or coaching with and that's where you kind of learn, what your style becomes. I've learned from, more so some of my basketball coaches that I had in high school, and then now colleagues that I've had across the board. I've had the opportunity to play at Division I, but also I've coached at D1, D2, and D3. So it's been nice to be able to have that wide range, and being able to have conversations with anyone on any level to be able to kind of bring stuff back to my program.
When you're coaching and the team is down, is there something that helps you like motivate them or kind of lead them to be a little bit more peppy about it? And like, how do you lead them through tougher times?
I think each one of them would give you a different response. I think they know when things needs to be picked up, and that's one of the best things about, I think, our team is we have this open communication, so they know when I'm getting frustrated or I'm getting mad, that they know that they need to pick it up. So it's kind of a nice vibe that we can read that off of one another.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to get the team going, I think it's more of getting on their level and kind of making sure that they know that their voice is heard, and I can give opinions, but they can also get back to the point of like what they feel is working and what's not working. I think that that's important, because if they don't feel that comfortable being able to be put into that situation, it's hard to overcome that adversity piece. And I think that that's something that, we actually practice in practice, that we could be in a tough situation, and when we get to the game, they're going to be able to handle that, whatever situation it is. But I feel like that they're usually pretty ready to go, and then we can work off one another versus me just putting it out there and that's it.
Is there a saying or something that you usually tell the team or people in general when you want to help like pick them up and lead them a little bit better? Is there a phrase that you live by or something like that?
I always say there's nothing really to lose. Being able to put yourself out there, I think, is one of the best things that you could possibly do, and not being afraid to do that. I think being able to challenge yourself and challenge one another only makes you a better person, and that's something that especially this last season we focused on. I pushed them to their limit. I pushed them to almost their breaking point, but I didn't break them. And I want them to understand that I'm not doing it for no reason. It's for them to be able to be prepared for when they leave here. It's not them going into the real world and not understanding what they're going to be able to do. They're going to be comfortable and be able to know that their coach pushed them to a point that not many people are going to do that afterwards,
Yeah.
you know, so they're going to feel comfortable in tough situations when they're out in the workforce.
That's very nice to hear, because I know sometimes people don't always feel like they're going to be prepared because they don't get pushed that much, but having a coach that would do that and like just showcasing like you can do this even though it's really hard is very important. Is there any programs that of leadership or something like that that you're a part of or want to be a part of?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually a part of this program called We Coach. So it is a group of, it's all women. So it's on every single level. It's across actually every single sport. It's an awesome opportunity to be able to kind of just go in and have conversations with other coaches, whether it's my sport or not. But it's also pretty cool that we actually get a ton of like videos or articles and kind of and live presentations, interview type things that we get to jump on Zoom and be able to kind of learn from these people that are across the board from kind of any really realm of the sports world.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything you want to leave the audience or the people that will be watching this with about like leadership or just life in general?
I think being able to, like I said, put yourself out there, challenge yourself, getting uncomfortable with the getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. It is important to have failures in life. I think that that's something that you learn a ton from. So I think being able to take those and being able to then, you know, implement them and how do you change from that? I think that that's the biggest thing of being able to overcome things so then you see that you can have that success.
Well, thank you for coming and interviewing today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
She's the school's first ever mental performance coach for all student athletes. On top of that, Coach Kira is an UNE alum, having competed on the women's cross country team from 2016 to 2018 and graduating from the university in 2019. We're looking forward to hearing her insights on leadership today. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Right on. Yeah, Coach, could you show us or tell us a little about your background, how you got into coaching cross country?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me here today. Thanks for letting me talk to you guys. I'm very excited to kind of share my story. So just to start, I have always kind of been a sports junkie. I've done pretty much everything from cross country, track and field, to soccer, to basketball, to field hockey. I've literally played everything. Have always loved sports, and I've always loved like being a part of sports. So I knew that like in some way I was going to have a career in sports. So back when I was a freshman in high school, I started coaching a elementary school and really loved that. Did that for a couple of years, and then went on to middle school coaching, and then high school coaching for a couple of years, and then now at the collegiate level for the past couple of years at UNE. And then again, as Alex mentioned, just started the CMC mental performance coaching here this year at UNE. So again, very excited to have that started up this year.
Great. With your whole history of sports, is there a specific moment that occurred in your career that has shaped your approach to coaching and leadership?
Honestly, I think so. So back when I was in high school, as previous coaches have mentioned, there's kind of a coach that usually shapes you in either a positive way or a negative way. I definitely very much experienced like a really negative style of coaching and then switched over into a really positive style of coaching. So having that negative coaching approach and having the like extreme pressure from both like parental pressure but also coach pressure and internal pressure to finally having a coach that was more about the enjoyment of the sport, being a part of a team, being a part of like a camaraderie. I think that kind of was the turning point for me to like be like, okay, like I really want to like do this too, and coach kids like in the appropriate way, and really foster growth rather than burnout. Yeah.
Great. With that being said, you talked about parents and coaches. Was there anyone specific that kind of influenced you to become this coach that you are now?
Yeah, so in terms of sports psychology, there's really not many people out there. I've talked to literally one person in the past before I kind of decided my junior year of high school that I wanted to go into sports psychology. So there was really nobody in the way of that. But again, in terms of coaching and college coaching, it was more of that like high school coach that really kind of helped me get out of my shell. Number one, as a person, I was very shy, very timid, very unsure of myself. And then once I started working with that other coach, I think she really kind of fostered that like growth mindset and really kind of fostered the, you can do anything that you set your mind to. If you want to be a coach, you can be a coach, you can be a leader, even if you are, a little bit on the shyer side. You can kind of come out of that shell and really make a name for yourself.
Yeah. So you were both an athlete and now a coach on the UNE cross country team. How would you describe the difference between your leadership back then and your leadership now?
I think it's a lot different now versus then. There's a lot of things that I wish I could have told myself as an athlete as I am now as a coach. I think that, again, when we were talking about leadership, I do think that I used to be a little bit more of a shy person. I wasn't really a leader when I was in my younger years of schooling. Once I became a college student and was on a college team, I think that I started really coming kind of out of my shell at that point and really kind of started learning leadership, learning skills, became the captain of the team, and really kind of had to grow a lot as a person. But I do think that things are a lot different now as a coach because I'm a lot more sure of myself, I'm a lot more sure of my skills, I'm a lot more interested in just helping others rather than what I'm doing myself as an individual. Because again, this sport is a lot bigger than just me. It's a lot bigger than, my personal growth. It's much more than that. It's all about, growing and helping all of you as athletes.
With that being said, and you being an assistant coach, has there ever been an instance where you kind of had to step up and be that head coach? And a follow-up question, do you see yourself in the future maybe being a head coach?
Yeah. So actually 2 years ago, the head coach at UNE gave birth to her baby girl 6 weeks early. So I did actually step up as head coach at that point. I was head coach from March until July of that year. So it was a very quick turnaround. It was a lot sooner than we expected, but it was a great experience, honestly. I think she was, fully prepared to have me just kind of step up and take the reins and go for it. And I think it went great. And I do think that I learned a lot from that experience for sure. So there have been times since then too that I've had to step up. In terms of right now, I take over the men's track and field team. So Courtney kind of does more of the women's track and field team. I do the men's track and field team. We kind of have our own lanes. And it works really, really well for us. That dynamic really works well for us, and it gives me a little bit more of a leadership sense. And then I think in the future I would love to head coach, but I also am excited to see where this sports psychology career takes me as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. As the mental health performance coach, how do you balance dealing with athletes' mental health and performance?
So when talking with athletes in terms of mental health and performance, I think there is a fine line between if somebody is struggling with truly a mental health issue versus struggling with a performance enhancement issue. And finding that balance is really, really important because if the athlete truly does have a mental health thing that we need to work on, then that's more appropriate for therapy or counseling. Whereas if it's a performance enhancement issue, absolutely, we'll totally delve into that. But that's more of a burnout or performance anxiety, or if we just need to hone in our skills on getting a little bit more focused, getting a little bit more concentrated, stuff like that. It's less of a we're dealing with some really traumatic things. We have trauma, we have depression, we have anxiety. That's more appropriate in the counseling field. But regardless, finding what that person needs, what that individual person needs, is very important to kind of that first step in terms of helping that individual.
Well, Coach, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been great hearing about your approach to leadership, coaching, and supporting athletes. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you for meeting here.
Introduction of his leadership journey. First, he started his career off in Northeastern, which is a D1 program. He was first the secondaries coach in 2008 and the receivers coach in 2009. In 2010, he moved to Becker College, which is a D3 program, and he worked his way up from assistant coach to defensive coordinator, and finally to head coach. And he coached there as a head coach for 5 seasons. And in 2015, he earned the Coach of the Year, along with many other accolades. In 2016, he moved to UNE, which was a new program opening up to football, and he has been here ever since. So to kick it off, Coach, my first question is going to be, were you born, or do you feel like you were born a leader, or have you acquired the skills along the journey to become one?
Well, first, Chris, thanks for having me. Appreciate you and your colleagues having me on to join you in this class and this interview. Hearing all that lined up, one thing after another, realized, it's been a long journey arriving here at UNE, and what we've built here during this time is something I'm really proud of. I think to your question about being a leader, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're kind of, your traits as a person through the way you were brought up in your environment, kind of leads you towards being in a position where you're interested in guiding people, mentoring people, helping them with their journey, investing yourself in their process of their growth. But undoubtedly, you learn an immense amount going through that yourself. Like, you're not the same leader year 1 that you are in year 3, that you are in year 10, that you are in year 15. So I'm not the same person I was when I first started doing this, and I'm certainly not the same leader. And I think the generation that you're coaching, teaching, mentoring, and their differences require you to develop. I'm not coaching the same player you are as a defensive back I was in 2008. You two very different people, different origins yourself. So, you kind of have to be a chameleon as a leader to give them what they need in that moment. So I think it's a balance of both. I think it's having an interest in doing this in the beginning and then applying yourself to learning how to do it to the best of your ability when you're in that moment.
Okay. To follow up, how do you think you have evolved, and which ways have you evolved within your leadership qualities?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think it's always important to take stock of that. Where was I to where am I, and where do I need to go? I think a huge part of this job, or a huge part of wanting to be a leader for multiple people at once, you got to have empathy. And a long time ago, when I was playing, or when I was learning, or when I was first coaching, there was a lot less emphasis on being an empathetic person or a leader, because to coach a large group of people, or to get a team all to go in one direction, there are standards, there are things you need to keep in place, or conformity that has to occur for everybody to pull and push in the same direction. To get that to happen, sometimes you have to be tough, or sometimes you have to be a little rigid. More now than ever, I think empathy is a huge part of the job, a huge part of being a leader. Seeing people's perspective, being able to identify with their wants and needs, being able to come across ways to reach them so that they are motivated, that they are dedicated and disciplined. So that's a huge part of development in my leadership skills over the last few years.
Okay. Have you had any mentors along your journey, as a leader?
I think all great leaders have been taught by somebody, whether it's a group of people, one really important person in their life. My father in the beginning, both my parents, they got me started on this. I think that's kind of where my origin comes from. But I've had great people along the way in all different capacities, whether it was Sean McDonald, the head coach at the University of New Hampshire, where I went to school. He managed a staff that was incredibly talented, very smart, hardworking group. They had accomplished a lot. But what I learned from him and what I watched him do was keep it all together and keep all those really talented, smart people with big egos and incredible vision, all looking at the same thing. So we were very vertically aligned under Coach Mack, still a mentor and a leader to me. Coach Hager, who won 4 national championships at North Dakota State, was our head coach at Northeastern. He taught me a lot about identifying with people one-on-one. So I think it's important to find mentors and leaders and people you believe in and identify with, and then taking from them what's really valuable to you personally. And that's how you establish mentors, and you formulate your own ideas through their experience and vision.
Okay. Throughout the journey, you've obviously been met with obstacles. So how have you overcome those obstacles with possibly people, like you said, those big egos and whatnot? Anything other than that, like any other challenges?
Well, no matter what, if you take on something that you're passionate about, you're going to be challenged, right? And nobody in this room or nobody in athletics or coaching, mentoring, anything takes on a challenge just easy, no problems, move right on. Then it wouldn't be any fun. You wouldn't feel any sense of accomplishment for when you do get a job done, or when you do move the needle, or have the group that you're involved with have success. That wouldn't feel great if it was just so easy, right? That's why people struggle to keep winning is just enough, right? But finding solutions to problems is what great leaders do, and it's not always going to be the most comfortable thing. It's not always going to be what you want to do. Maybe you have to adjust to fit other people's schedules, or you have to see things through other people's eyes, which is that empathetic characteristic I was talking about. But keeping an open mind, listening to those around you, because a lot of the times the players, your assistant coaches, your administrators, people are in this fight with you to create a great product and a great team. All those guys who are invested, all those people who are invested and committed as you are, they often have great ideas as well. Perspective is everything. So sometimes when there's an alternative perspective, the answers to challenges reveal themselves.
To talk about finding the people that are invested, how did you make those people come out of their shell, basically, just find those groups of guys that were invested and that wanted to work?
Yeah, I think you first have to make people believe in the vision, right? If you have a group of really talented, hungry, anxious, and determined people, and you get them to believe in the vision of the entire program, once they start to believe, their own characteristics of strength and hard work and determination show themselves. You have to create a comfortable area where people can be themselves first and foremost, right? An open system, environment, no matter where you come from, whether it's Minnesota, California, Massachusetts, or Maine, you belong to something. And once you feel that belonging, and once you feel that entitlement to what the group is going through, you start to share how you're thinking and feeling. And when you share how you're thinking and feeling, and when you're willing to commit to something bigger than yourself, progress happens. That's when it happens.
And as a coach of plenty of guys, us included, what is your main goal for us to take away from playing here?
Well, on a small scale, I want every player we coach here to have a meaningful and educational and transformative experience, right? The goal is to graduate, of course. That's something that you could check yes or no to. But each day you're at the University of New England, whether you're playing a sport or in class or interacting with peers in a residence hall, you're having a transformative experience, as in you're gaining life skills that are going to serve you far beyond your time at this place. And I think the biggest objective we have is to make sure when you do graduate that there's nothing beyond that stage that you can't handle, whether it's raising a family of your own, handling a career, managing life's challenges, and we don't always know what they're going to be, but having the confidence and the skills and the ability to know that you can do hard things is really at the center of what we're trying to accomplish for each and every one of our graduates. And as a team, we all want to win. We all want to win the right way. We want to win for each other. We want everybody to have a great experience between the lines, but certainly outside of them.
Okay. And into my next question, how would you describe your leadership style?
It's fluid. I try to adhere my leadership style to what the person I'm leading needs. So I'm not going to coach you or lead you or instruct you the same way I'm going to instruct your peers. Everybody needs a different way of being connected to what it is they need in that moment, whether it's, hey, you need to straighten out here and get focused and a little bit of tough love, or, a shoulder to cry on, or somewhere in between. Leadership requires a lot of different types of instruction or dedication or commitment. But the biggest part of being a leader is identifying what the individual you're leading needs.
Okay. What is one aspect you feel like you could clean up, even if you have everything like at its highest rate, but what do you feel like you can just improve on, like leadership wise?
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance between being in the moment and being intricate with how you're working with everybody while maintaining a big picture mentality. Very difficult to do because you want every individual interaction you're a part of to get the most out of it and to make sure it's as impactful as it possibly can be. But you're only one person and you only have so much time and you can't be everything to everybody. So keeping that in mind, sometimes you need to think on the 30,000-foot view or the long-term view, and striking a balance between the intricate relationships and interactions you can have while keeping a big picture mentality is the difficult balance.
Okay. And what advice would you give to the aspiring leaders? Like our whole class, to be honest with you, what would you give us as advice?
I would say a challenge or an adversity is a terrible thing to waste. So what seems to be a large challenge or something to overcome for every individual kind of in your age range is understanding the difference between adversity and something that is going to affect you mentally or emotionally. And identifying a chance to overcome adversity and how that can build your confidence and how that can inspire you to take on different challenges is invaluable. So I'd say every chance you get to overcome an adverse situation or to challenge yourself and discover, can I really make it through and conquer this? Don't waste that chance because it's only going to help you grow as a person, and growth is uncomfortable, and it's important to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You've heard me say that a few times.
Yes, most definitely. I live by that actually. So thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the informative interview that we just had. And I hope that everyone in the crowd, even me, I'm going to hold this dear and I'm going to apply it to my future. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.